This broadcast is brought to you by Chase, investing in schools, homes, and communities all over Indianapolis with a focus on the Near East Side. This is what Chase is doing. This is the way forward.
INHP, helping working families become and remain homeowners by providing preparation and support for success today and tomorrow. Homeownership has the potential to preserve neighborhoods and strengthen communities into the future. Dream, prepare, succeed.
Citizens Energy Group, a proud supporter of the Super Bowl Legacy project and dedicated to raising the quality of life in the Indianapolis community. Information at citizensenergygroup.com.
Super Bowl 46 will be played on February 5th, 2012, will be played in Indianapolis.
I'm Derwin Smiley. This is the final chapter of our look together at how Super Bowl 46 changed how we see our city's future. In more than a game, we met the determined neighbors of the Near East Side, handpicked by the host committee as ground zero, where a little help could do a lot of good.
It's just wonderful. It's great to see my community actually getting some help.
And I wish that we could have this much civic pride, every single year, that we could do things like this and totally transform parts of town.
Our journey continued through. Nearing the goal, we saw promises taking bricks and mortar shape with a place for everyone, new residents and long-timers alike, at the table.
If you're going to strengthen a neighborhood, doesn't it make sense to do that by strengthening the residents that live there?
If they'll reach a hand up and you reach a hand out, that you can change people's lives.
Game time is showtime. Welcome, world, to the power of the Legacy Project.
I'm surprised by the simplicity of offering people dignity and hope.
Now, let's you and I talk about the Super Bowl's lasting legacy as we visit neighborhoods all across our city, ready for transformation and what dreams may come.
Even after the football game ends in February, there's another decade of work that's still ahead of us.
The risk is not doing anything. That's the cancer.
When citizens in a city see a pocket of the city turn around its community, that courage is contagious.
Do you think that your vision will come to pass? Absolutely yes. Because I believe that what we're trying to do is the right thing.
The victors have left with the Lombardi, and yeah, the Patriots are gone too. But who can forget the remarkable February where La Nina stayed in Dallas while the world came to our doorstep. Yet, all around the city, reminders that Super Bowl 46 could impact the world in ways far beyond the game. The face on the billboard is that of Tracy Runge. We told you how she made history when she became the first woman in the world to donate both healthy and cancerous breast tissue to the Super Cure. Our story continues with the growing need to collect tissue samples from women of diverse backgrounds.
Growing up, I had friends whose mothers had breast cancer, and they fight really brave battles with the disease, but unfortunately, I've gone to so many different funerals for my friends and their families that it's just heartbreaking. And I heard about this program, and I thought, what a better way than to try and find a cure.
When you look at the incidence of fatalities with cancer, it is more prominent in the African American community. And so it's very important that they have enough tissue from our community in order to do the research. And I have several friends who are fighting a gallant fight with breast cancer right now.
When you've nursed a friend through this type of cancer, it's just, it personalizes it. It's more devastating, and the cure is much more difficult because of the type of breast cancer that our race is affected by.
We have to be in the database, because if the database is for research, if we're not in the database, we're not in the game.
They had a low percentage as far as women that were coming in of different ethnicities that were given donation, and we just need somebody to come out that, you know, can represent one race and try to get more people out. And they had set a goal, and they had surpassed the goal by I don't know how much more, but you know, I think stuff like that, when you set goals and you go over and beyond, it just, I mean, it makes it all worth it.
And the pairing of a major sport like this and a major sporting activity with one of the leading cancer killers of women is innovative, has enormous messaging power, and we believe will reach hundreds of millions of people.
It's a profound and powerful message. Speaking of millions, over 1 million visits were paid to the Super Bowl Village. And somewhere in, oh, the humanity, we'll find our student journalists from Tech High School heading for a behind-the-plaza look at the ESPN studios.
Ah, yeah, here we are. We in the Super Bowl. Hold on now. That'll make it lose your job.
When we step back, you should be.
I'm gonna talk to dude on Twitter.
This hallway is where the magic happens. We have coverage of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, with the TV.
Welcome. Hi. How are you? Nice to see you. Hi. Welcome. Not starting. Is it good for you? Is that healthy? Yeah. What I'm doing.
Herm Evans, how you guys doing?
How are you?
Nice to meet you guys. How you going?
Word of advice for all people: be on time. I don't care what you do, just be on time. When you're on time, it shows people you care. It shows people that this is the #1 priority. If you can't be on time, it's not a good sign. If you're on time your whole life, you're going to have no problem. Be on time.
You say matchups, like I look at the NFL's about matchups, and almost all the matchups favor the Giants.
Thanks, guys. On their home away from home, on the Tech campus, sits the crown jewel of the Legacy Project, the newly completed Chase Near East Side Legacy Center.
People are talking about Indianapolis, not just here in this community, but across the globe. And they're saying it in glowing terms.
11 organizations offer 200 hours of educational and fitness activities each week for Near East Side youth and adults. At the center of it all is the Fitness Zone, a state-of-the-art gymnasium run by IUPUI School of Kinesiology, teaching everything from body sculpting to yoga to kickboxing, and there's real method to the mentoring.
In Indiana, we are currently ranked, depending on where you read, anywhere from 15th to 19th as far as like obesity in the United States. So obviously that is one of the biggest issues that we have here. Inside obesity as well, you have things like heart disease, you have things like high blood pressure. If you don't have a facility in place for people in the community, they're not likely to see themselves as someone who can actually participate.
On the south side of the building, the Youth Education Town offers an eclectic mix of classes from music to abstract painting to the culinary arts, and perhaps the future TV producers putting together a show just like this one.
We're able to bring a unique perspective to the community and even challenge the way that some of the students who have grown up in this area, who have seen some really rough things, they can take their cameras and they can actually show a new side. It's things like that that really can serve and impact a person's life.
But friends, this is only halftime. We now have a game plan on how we can move forward in improving our community.
Indianapolis doesn't have very many more cornfields left. We have to be now focused from a future development perspective on remaking what we already have. Neighborhoods that we built 100 years ago need to be the places where we're reinvesting now. And that's not something we've necessarily completely figured out how to do as a city.
Yet, finding the right path to revitalize Indianapolis' first-ring suburbs is a journey that is long overdue. And the problems some citizens face there can no longer wait, even in the Legacy neighborhood itself.
We have individuals who come through here who don't even know how to write the alphabet, and they're in their late 20s to late 40s.
And in Martindale Brightwood,
2 people were killed right on the front porch because of a drug deal gone bad.
On the west side,
there wasn't a block you could go down that something hadn't been demolished or broken into.
And in Devington.
There were murder that I even saw here one afternoon. It just sort of was the culture. No one believes in where you live anymore.
According to Forbes, Indianapolis is the 9th most abandoned city in America. But in the midst of us accepting the challenge to turn that statistic around lies great opportunity, with one caveat.
The magic bullet doesn't exist in any way to transform communities.
But while there's no one-size-fits-all fix, our travels have shown us some common themes.
In the communities that aren't turning around, there's a real sense of waiting for someone to solve the problem versus recognizing and engaging leadership and building leadership in the community to solve the problem.
The number one rule of organizing is meet people where they are. Some folks within their own community saying, we've got some challenge, what can we do? And they're driving the process.
A true zealous nut to lead them on. Well, I think I'm that person. You know, I love this community. I think that person has to love this community. They almost have to bleed the community.
But if you don't have folks that are committed to this work, not because they're coerced into it, not because they're paid to do their job, but because they want to do that, because they love their neighbor, they love their place. If you don't have those folks in place, motivated to work together, then you won't find success.
It's adding to that voice of creating a chorus that swells to a unified demand that's not easy.
We're not perfect about it, but organizations here put community interests before self-interest of each of the groups. And having that perspective, you know, just makes for a healthier environment, and everybody wins in the end.
And so, you know, neighborhood groups are saying, oh, that's not my project, I think that's your project, let us help you with it. Let's be a partner with you on that project. That never happened before, and it doesn't happen in a lot of neighborhoods.
Mobilized communities get attention. Money follows vision. The most important thing is to have the vision and then have a clear understanding of what you're trying to accomplish.
And so in some neighborhoods, you could eventually get this notion that said, we know that we can't do everything at the same time for everybody, and that I'll believe that if you do something over there, that eventually that will benefit me, and that eventually my time will come. In other neighborhoods, it kind of stayed at the, I want mine now, and I want mine now, and there was never the ability to say, okay, we get that we're all in this together, and we can't all benefit at the same time.
Here in Devington, that's the same deal. There's 1 or 2 agencies that receive a lot of that funding, and they do it all. Well, now that we're growing, there's multiple organizations that are getting trusted with dollars, and of course, you know, that's going to take dollars from other people, but I think what it does do is it puts dollars in the right hands so that social service folks aren't managing building fund dollars, and that, you know, developers aren't, you know, getting grants for educational services.
It makes outside groups feel like they can plug in so much easier. They don't feel like they're choosing one group over another and that other group's going to be upset at them.
I'm very willing to spend my time and my money to be here.
It's almost like the building whispers to me all the time, like, oh, thank you. Thank you for taking down that drop ceiling.
To continue to be successful, East 10th Street also needs the private sector to invest. Tim Harmon and Julie Crow are cleaning up this mess to open another fine mess, an example of more businesses moving into the area.
You look at 10th Street and you sort of have the impression of, wow, you know, there's some homeless here, and it's perhaps it's a little rough, perhaps it's not, but 3 houses off of 10th Street, there's all these great middle-class young families moving in and living here.
This isn't a flipping situation. We're not going to flip this building. We have no interest in that. You know, we plan to own it for a lot of years.
Once plenty of work was easy to find, large factories grew up next to mid-sized homes, and thousands simply walked to steady jobs. Interstate highways trucked the economic rationale for these neighborhoods to the suburbs. The neighborhoods died. New jobs and various skills, and plenty of them, are part of the cure.
We need to increase the number of jobs that we have here. We have buildings that are currently underutilized and some warehouse spaces and some other retail spaces that just are ready to go for businesses.
Quoting the Indianapolis Star, it's hard to imagine how the Near East Side would look if we did not have it. There would be fewer trees, more dilapidated houses, and a lot less hope in the neighborhood. This sounds so very familiar. This wasn't written about the Legacy Project. The year was 1996, and a story of how things that begin well can end poorly. Eastside Community Investments made national headlines as the standard for the country's community development corporations.
Over time, it grew to an organization, a $7 million operation with over 60 employees. There was a lack of expertise on the board about what exactly are we getting into.
The company had technically gone bankrupt, legally it had gone bankrupt. And so investors lost money, banks lost money, endowments around the country were looking at what was going on. It received a lot of attention because it had earned a lot of attention. And so the same way people were looking at why did it work, there was a lot of attention focused on why did it fail.
Most of those 500 units of housing were in scattered doubles all around the neighborhoods, and they ended up being foreclosed on, boarded and vacant, just the thing that we were trying to prevent. There was a lot of people that were upset, a lot of people that were angry, a lot of distrust in the neighborhood.
When the Super Bowl came calling, the lingering reminder of ECI remained.
The biggest thing that can happen to a neighborhood is to begin to have its spirits raised, and then nothing happens.
One of the things that I'm most proud of, probably my proudest moment just as we did this work, is there was someone that was active within Eastside Community Investments that came up to me after a presentation, and he had in his pocket the keys to the old ECI offices, and he said, frankly, I've been carrying these around with me for many years now, daily. And I've been unable to sort of let go of that sort of past regret and to kind of forgive for some of the things that had happened there. And he said, you know, at this point, I'm ready to let those things go.
I think that there's nothing that assures us that we can say that the Legacy Project or any other neighborhood revitalization effort will succeed. There's also nothing that tells us that any neighborhood revitalization effort, no matter how wild their dreams are, will fail.
A wild idea to grow jobs, and one that's working, is catching fire on the west side. When residents look for ideas to revitalize the decimated Lafayette Square area, all they had to do was listen.
Хорошо, попробуем. Я думаю, дом написать.
It was like we woke up one day and we said, oh wow. We had people from all cultures, Ethiopians, we had Indians, Greek, Japanese, Vietnamese. Maybe trying to bring big business and retail back is not where we want to be anymore. Maybe we need to make sure that everybody knows that We have a gym. So we have over 70 different restaurants, 50 to 70 different ethnic restaurants. We have about 50 different grocery stores to highlight the different cultures and about 10 different bakeries in the area.
When I came to the United States, the first I was driving taxi in a way, and after that I decided to open this restaurant because I know I'm very experienced for this work, and I opened it. Still, I'm good now. I have a good customers, working hard with the family. That's why we're doing it.
This is incense. If you want to, you go and drink some.
The New York Times have already said, this is a place where the world comes to eat. What better validation than that?
We'll go together and enjoy it, guys.
With plans to add an international center and ultimately an international sports field for bocce, soccer, and highlight, Mary and Company aim to use the real character of the community to change the perceived character of the community.
Because perception, as you know, often becomes reality.
There was a new restaurant tour, and I said, it'd be great to have your new restaurant be here because of the amount of traffic that 38th Street gets. He says, well, I don't think that would be good for our business to open up our business in your neighborhood. Not because of the traffic counts, but because of the perception. You don't want to be known as being a franchise restaurant that has a business in this neighborhood. And so it really doesn't even have to come down to dollars and cents anymore. It really comes down to image.
The perception creates reality. The image creates perception. And much of the image of the worst part of first-ring communities is this. Many are owned by absentee landlords with no direct ties to the neighborhoods. They have no reason to care, leaving communities nowhere.
When this property was switching hands at some point, the residents were sort of left in limbo, meaning nobody was paying to have the trash removed. No one was paying services that would even collecting rent wasn't even done. So things really got chaotic here. The real challenge here was, again, a New York owner that didn't want to put up a fence. Trash was getting thrown, it was going into the garden. But again, when the system breaks down and someone doesn't participate, then the whole operation shuts down. Local ownership. It's that simple.
Will Marquez walked away from a rather exotic past, designing skyscrapers in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, to build some magic here, helping a local developer reinvigorate the Devonton area and using his company with purpose to forge some unorthodox partnerships.
We teamed up with Arlington High School, and I think once a month the students come out and they test the meter and do the readings, and then they go back and figure out how many dollars the developer's saving and how solar panels make a difference.
I remember when we moved in, it didn't seem like it was so bad, and then after we were here for a while, I kind of questioned even why we were here, and we wanted to move, and then my wife kind of stuck with it.
I got married in my house. I brought my son home to our house. It's the only home he ever had, and I pictured, a prideful place to live, and people, working people, and neighborly, and I knew it could happen.
But a major part of what is wrong with this picture is a tough reminder of how hard it is to green their neighborhood's past.
We have to worry about the lead. When they did the cleanup, they went through the neighborhood and dug up most of the soil, but on this site itself, there's still contamination up underneath the concrete and everything, so there's going to be a lot of people reluctant to do anything out here at all.
The cause was a foundry that once spewed lead for decades until it closed, only to sit vacant and toxic for decades more, a temporary haven for prostitutes and occasional arsonists. Years and years and years rolled by, and this more than an eyesore still stood.
The mayor came to each one of our neighborhoods and they pulled them to the side and actually took them over to the Avanti site and said, we need this down, and so they got it down.
Just wanting it real bad and meeting people that want the same things that you do.
You have to be patient with it. You need to have the right people on your side. You have to stay persistent, and you can work through anything.
In the shadow of new housing being built on the old Central State Asylum site, community gardens awaken to the touch of spring. It might seem that in a neighborhood besieged by poor housing and unemployment, flowers should be a low priority. But the We Care Association is currently one of modest means using small victories to send a major message.
It seemed like that we was in such a long period of talk, just talk about this, talk about that. We want this, we want that. The connection wasn't there. So we kept saying, we gotta have something that the people can see that we're doing, because all they know is that we have an association and there's a lot of talk and nothing being done. And so the one thing that we could do was the parks.
Usted también debería mirar su página de Facebook en la computadora.
But if there's one area where progress on the west side has stalled, it's in getting the community to be unified.
We still haven't found the key to bring us together on issues.
But you know, you cannot do one group of Latinos and one group of African Americans and one group of Anglos, because everybody, you know, it's three groups. Instead of all of us being together, we will be stronger. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Assault, you know how many?
No idea.
45. Each business.
We have a guy that he has been robbed twice in front of his kids and family. We need more help. I'm trying to get involved with the neighborhood crime watch to see if I can bring more Latino community with the Anglo community, that we can work as one team, you know, and we can watch each other's back.
So what you have to do is combat that in a very bold way.
If you know Circle Center, the Velodrome, and the Downtown Canal, then you know Mike Higbee through his work with the HUD administration. He's an urban developer now, taking an old National Automobile plant and turning it into a school in the design district. He thinks the public-private sector model that built a super city is still a good one.
I think that public-private partnership organized and that commitment made would make a huge difference, and it becomes a market opportunity again, just like downtown did. It is a mistake to think we can do this one project at a time. You can build housing till the cows come home, but housing is not going to redevelop a neighborhood.
Solutions that are only focused on real estate development aren't going to be successful if it's not creating the types of places where people want to be. And solutions that only deliver a bundle of services to people aren't going to be successful if they're not in places that inspire them.
It's not just dealing with housing. Housing's a symptom. It's not just dealing with crime. Crime's a symptom. It's dealing with all of these things in totality.
Whether that be abandoned housing or workforce development or access to youth programs or transportation issues. I think Indianapolis has demonstrated itself as one of a community that can successfully work together to achieve its priorities.
Every neighborhood deserves to have that. We need more of us and the businesses coming together and working together and being a part of taking care of our communities.
Not because there's a big game coming to town, not because the camera crews are coming to town, but everybody in this city, everybody in this state is worthy just because.
Makes me feel like I'm supposed to feel, like a Hoosier, like a person in Indianapolis. I shouldn't have anything substandard no more than anyone else.
There's always going to be a question of whether or not there's enough resources. And one of the exciting things about Indianapolis, and perhaps about the Super Bowl, is that at least for a while, we may actually be pursuing our dreams as opposed to our tempered dreams.
I have a very simple definition of leadership that you've heard me say 1,000 times. You can't lead people unless you love people, and you can't save people unless you serve people.
If you make your first half-hearted attempt to engage them and it doesn't work, you have to go back. Because at some level, I always feel like those first slammed doors are their way of saying, we know you're not going to come back. And I think when you come back, they start to get interested in you.
I don't take no very gracefully. We're going to find ways to convince you that your answer needs to be yes. And that's what we do. We don't take no.
I could stay here and close the door and turn my head, but there's something in me that won't let me do that. It's home, and I'm not going to give it up. And the only way to do that is stay and fight the fight. And
fight the fight? You don't seem like a fighter.
Oh, I can be.
And regardless of the destination, I think if you're about that kind of work and you really, really care about it and care about those people, that's just what life's all about.
Now, I'll be the first to admit that our overview has been brief, but if there's one thing we learned by talking to our neighbors across the city, It's this. This destination is one that we can only get to together. And that's the discussion we're joining tonight. We're headed for the WFYI studios for a special edition of Indy Talks to get input on ideas for continuing the Indianapolis Renaissance on a scale that might just make Super Bowl 46 pale in comparison. Now to our Indy Talks host, Jim Schiller.
Thanks, Derwin. You know, when visitors from all over the world came to Indianapolis last February, they proclaimed in glowing reviews that they were witness to a Super Bowl like it had never been done before. Now the event is gone, but the enthusiasm for civic renewal that it sparked lives on as neighborhoods all over the city hope to build on that spirit and to accomplish what no city has been able to do yet: transform at-risk areas into neighborhoods that not only work well, but in which all aspects of community life thrive. In our discussion, we won't have nearly all the answers we need to get it done. Our goal is to help keep the momentum going, getting some input from the city's leadership and people in the community every day. Joining me are Carmen DeRusha, Extension Educator in the area of Economic and Community Development at the Purdue Extension, Marion County. Carmen is a true believer in the power of people working together for shared vision. Mark Miles, Chairman of the 2012 Super Bowl Host Committee. All of us here, thank you for the tremendous job you, Allison Millington, and crew did for the city. Bill Taft, Executive Director of the Local Initiatives Support Corporation, whose email to Mark was the catalyst for creating the Super Bowl Legacy project. Carlos Permel is a community advocate in the Mid-North and Martindale-Brightwood areas who often works with troubled youth and the juvenile justice system. And finally, Michael Huber, Deputy Mayor for Economic Development in the Ballard administration. All right, we're going to start our discussion with Michael Huber. You know, folks talk about how we put a lot of money in the downtown area, in stadiums and Georgia Street and all sorts of improvements. And they worry about, do neighborhoods lack in the meantime?
I hear about it a lot at neighborhood meetings, things like that. There does exist this kind of debate that sometimes gets two-sided. We're either going to invest in downtown or we're going to invest in the neighborhoods. If you drive around downtown and you look at how it's grown and how it's evolved, a lot of the major employment centers, whether we like it or not, I think it's a positive thing, are starting to stretch us into the neighborhoods. If you look at the growth of the hospitals and IUPUI master plan and Busch Stadium and the fact that Riverside community was so instrumental in the Busch Stadium plan, you look at the growth of major employers like Angie's List on the Near East Side, again, they're starting to blur that boundary between downtown and neighborhoods. My hope is that it's going to get us to the point where it's not this two-sided debate, and we'll start to see how the growth of and evolution of downtown begins to open up a lot of opportunities to redevelop neighborhoods and create opportunities for people in those neighborhoods.
I think when you look at cities that don't have strong downtowns, doing neighborhood revitalization in those cities is much more difficult than it is in Indianapolis. And so you look at the success of places like Fountain Square, very much built off of what was happening right across the interstate in downtown. And I think you're seeing that all around the downtown area. So they really work off of each other.
For 40 years, the priority has been building a robust downtown. I happen to agree that that was appropriate, not to the exclusion of everything else, but I think that gives us the opportunity to move beyond that. I think the priority for the next 40 years, without neglecting downtown, is to rebuild the urban core of the city and of the region. And to me that means a few things. One is ramping up neighborhood development in some ways like was done with the Near East Side Legacy Initiative in a number of core neighborhoods around downtown. I think it also means we have to pay enormous attention and make educating kids in great schools in the same area that kind of priority. They're completely related. And I think transit and having connections in our neighborhoods and ways for people to get to work and to get to health care is essential if we're going to rebuild the urban core. People understand that the center, and now an expanded center, has to be whole, and, or the entire region has a real fundamental problem.
And I will add that probably the vision that will put those things together is when we realize that we have to prioritize in people. We have to grow people. We have to spend in people, regardless where they live. We are lagging and investing in people. And we can see and the horrible statistics we have about public education, about incarcerated, ex-offenders, and all these things that represent how much do we invest in people. And so we don't put enough resources in education at the beginning, we are going to pay extremely higher prices, not only in human lives, but also in resources. When you know that you can predict how many kids are going to be incarcerated if they read or not by grade third grade, you know those statistics. So, I mean, it's unbelievable that we just take it seriously and say, okay, yes, 40% of our kids don't read and write, knowing that those kids are going to be incarcerated when they are adults and little hope we'll have for the community. So we are losing them as a human resource, plus we are going to pay about $40,000 to have somebody incarcerated. So those are the kind of thinking that has to go into making policy about investing in people heavily. Whatever it takes, people has to go first.
All right, the residents we talked to in our travels listed 3 basic areas of improvement to help their communities thrive: infrastructure, code enforcement, and public safety. To make each of these work requires effective partnerships for the community. If nothing is reported, nothing gets done. For service providers, if something is reported, the response must be quick. That give and take is essential, as Derwin Smiley shows us as he explores the police-community relationship in the Devington area.
You can see that we've got quite a few empty buildings up here.
Sergeant Michael Hansen patrols the northeast community of Devington, looking for anything out of the ordinary. But he's not alone.
There are a lot of good people that live in this Devington area. A lot of good people up here. When they get to know the officers that work a particular area, they're no longer strangers. So that if they have information pertaining to something that's going on in the neighborhood, they will now more willing to share that information. Complain about boarded up houses. Keep track of your neighborhood. Go to your community meetings. Get to know the officers that run your area. Become involved. Become a block captain so that you can keep a lid on the criminal activity that's happening in your neighborhood.
All right, let's go into our city reports from the city. I see IMPD in the house. It's always good to see you.
How important is it to have a working relationship between the police officers and the residents in this community?
Well, without police providing the kind of safety that you need, no neighborhood could be safe. So we understand the importance of that, and we've tried to share with our neighbors how important it is.
Yeah, how can we help you, ma'am?
Illegal parking, and neighborhood cleanup day, abandoned houses. Officers are actively involved in the discussion, and for good reason. Community engagement is crucial to preventing crime in the first place.
How important is it for residents to take ownership of their community?
Okay, man, that's such a strong way to make sure your home is safe, your family is safe, your community is safe, and we're learning how important it is for us to come together, to unite, to stand up against causes that we don't believe in and support causes that we do believe in.
So the subject is community engagement. I mean, you can go to any neighborhood and you can find community activists. You can find the people who are involved and communicating with the police department and with city government and trying to get things done, but it's never enough. How do you get people to get involved?
You saw in the past that government and other institutions assumed that if you had a community meeting that somehow magically you would have the right people there. And I think what we've learned through the Great Indian Neighborhoods Initiative and the Legacy Initiative is that it is hard work, and it takes organization, and it takes skilled people, and it takes resources to actually strengthen the civic network of a community and have it be strong enough to take on challenges, to create plans, to address unique opportunities that come up. And so the Near East Side had that groundwork that had been done, and so they were ready to be a partner with the host committee when that happened.
It's a fabric that you're trying to weave together. It's like a tapestry. And sometimes in that tapestry, right, some of that hard stuff gets missing because in some cases, having a working relationship with the local police when you talk about safety becomes challenging because we understand it as adults, but how do you start to develop that relationship with youth, right? So you have to figure that stuff out and get those relationships to be built. Well, that's the hard conversation, right? And, you know, we're learning, right? We're learning through Ginny initiatives. We're learning through what we're doing in the Midlife Quality of Life Plan, right? We're learning through what we're doing with the relationship we have in Martindale Brightwood with the Juvenile Detention Center. But still, right, that's going to take some time and some pressure and some resources and more money, right? Because it takes more cops on the beat to kind of make a place safe. But also, if they see themselves in a relationship to that community, right, then what ends up happening is that they don't become foreign, they become part of the fabric. But that just comes with being consistent. And I think whether we, what we saw happen with the Legacy Project and what hopefully we'll be able to replicate with the Mid-North Quality of Life Plan is people feeling like, as this is a destination, that police are part of that community and they're not, what should I say, kind of overseeing it, right, or marshalling it to some degree.
I identify one main issue in terms of citizens' engagement or neighborhoods engagement or the whole community engagement, and it is that by the end somebody has to make decisions, and that's where the institutions sometimes impose their power, and we are going to make the decisions that we believe are the best, and sometimes residents feel disenfranchised about, in the end, I came to the meetings, I gave my opinions, but people with the power to make decisions end up, so I feel disinvested to continue participating in the community. And so the police is one example. I mean, they have the power. They are not there to negotiate the law. They are there to enforce the law. And that's why it's kind of difficult to see a policeman as my friend, because really, I mean, he is enforcing the law. And so what kind of relationship and truly can I build with this person who is there? And if you see, Indiana has been one of the 3 states in the nation in which 2008 and 2009 has growth in the incarcerated population, which means that we are very punitive. I mean, we are there to chastise rather than to, in a way, build people when they make mistakes. We enforce the law, we put them in prison, and that is. So I think institutions have of all sorts, from the police to the government to the schools to everybody, has to have this desire to build people more than anything else, and to help people and to rescue people. And that will really help us build the core, because communities are about people.
And Carmen hits on a really important piece. I mean, we're doing some work right now with the Juvenile Detention Center, right, in terms of how they are capturing young men of color and moving them through the detention center. 80% of the males that go through that detention center are African American. 25% of them come from schools, right? I mean, so there's something drastically wrong there. It's a tougher conversation when you have issues like economic disparity, right? The tension of revitalizing communities, that's sorely needed, but really dealing with issues of economic disparity, inequality, right? Safety, and this real tough question of race, right? Because as you start to move into these neighborhoods, I mean, the segment, we saw this whole Latino population on the west side. Well, where are they in the conversation moving forward? I mean, I think this is one of the best opportunities we have moving forward after the Super Bowl. How do we bring these pieces together and make this fabric really work? You know, I think that's the challenge.
I think people need to have a sense that the future of the neighborhood is their future as well.
Correct.
And one of the areas that in community development we have not developed as much is this idea of opportunity and employment and connection to a living wage job, and the stability that brings to families and to neighborhoods is hard to calculate. And we have, you drive around urban neighborhoods, there's so many what used to be large employers that are now empty. And you think about the reason these neighborhoods are there, go back to that history, yet it's a missing piece now. So how do we develop economic strategies that actually weave those neighborhoods back into where the future opportunities are, and then use schools to prepare kids to be ready to work in those? And that's where, obviously ultimately policing is much less necessary when people have a sense of ownership and future in a place.
Exactly.
All right, now we're going to take a question from the audience.
I'm Carol Johnston from Christian Theological Seminary, and I've been watching a burgeoning movement of young adults in what they're calling social entrepreneurship. And what I wondered is what you think about, since Indianapolis has been branded as a sports capital and a bio crossroads capital, How about a humanitarian hub where we encourage these young folks and find the best ones and shine a light on them and invest in what they're doing and help that Indianapolis become known as a place where young people could come and engage in these kinds of exciting, creative social entrepreneurship projects?
I've noticed that the emergence of these kids in the last 10 years as well. I do think there are some unique assets of this city that also made the Super Bowl possible that can serve those folks, that can make that, what you described, possible. The accessibility of the city is very significant. People like me didn't grow up here, and I know a lot of other people who have gotten great opportunities here that they might not have gotten in other cities that are more provincial or where you have to be from the right family or have gone to the right high school. I see a real lack of that here, and that creates opportunity. I think there's a lack of cynicism too, and you saw that with the 8,000 volunteers that made up the that came forward from the Super Bowl from a lot of different, not just Indianapolis, a lot of other towns and communities. And then finally, I think there's a basic competence that we have to pull off major projects. Again, not just the Super Bowl. If you look at something like the Legacy project, which is fairly expansive, so I think we have a lot for those social entrepreneurs to do. I think what we need to do is one thing we need to do, and local government included, we need to do a better job of connecting those folks to our bigger traditional institutions.
All right, one of the most visible reminders of the Super Bowl is the 46 by 46 mural project. As we move into the next phase of the Legacy initiative, the arts community remains totally committed, but in a brand new way, focusing on the power of art to make new connections between people and the places where they live stronger than ever.
Over the last 10 years, this building has kind of grown from being a sleepy, semi-abandoned space that was draining energy from the community to a place that's really inspiring the community.
Inspiring indeed. The Harrison Arts Center works to support emerging artists exhibiting work in 4 galleries, rebuilding the cultural fabric of downtown communities. Now, a new gallery, the City Gallery, not only connects people to community culture, but also space.
We looked at the neighborhood abandoned housing maps that the Department of Metropolitan Development has, and we were just struck with how many abandoned houses there were in these donut neighborhoods that surround the downtown core. And so we thought, could we use the energy of the arts to help bring attention to these neighborhoods, to help build community in these neighborhoods, and help connect people to these neighborhoods?
The City Gallery is part exhibit, part resource center.
People come in and they sign up and they say, I know all kinds of things about my neighborhood. I want to be a resource. And so when somebody calls, often they just want to talk to somebody who lives there because they want to know what their experiences are and where do they go to the grocery store and how do they take care of this and what do they do about this. And so connecting them with real neighbors or getting them invited to somebody's home for dinner or to a supper club or to a neighborhood block party, we can do those kinds of things. And that really makes the difference.
Call it grassroots activism with a cultural twist. And it's a message that's hitting home by helping new residents find the perfect neighborhood to call home.
We've been more successful than we had anticipated, even in this startup phase, and so we're looking forward to great things to come.
All right, a question for Mark Miles. The Super Bowl committee and the Super Bowl did a great job of pulling together all sorts of diverse resources, created tremendous momentum. How do you keep the momentum going? Or can you?
Oh, I think you can. I have spent a lot of time outside this country and had a fair exposure to this country. I think Indianapolis, one of the benefits of sport and the way it's been done here, not just in the Super Bowl, is to mix people and to activate people and to get people to work together on big projects and to think big. And the reason we do that isn't for the sporting event. It's to get people off kind of the civic couch and get them engaged in their community and to get them to mix with other people. So we've always tried to have young and old and diverse people involved in these big projects. If I'm thinking about creating great new schools through initiative at the local level, if I'm thinking about neighborhood reorganization on a scaled up level, if I'm thinking about passing a transit referendum, I see all kinds of opportunities to get people involved. And the key to getting them involved, whether it's the arts or any of these other big opportunities, is giving them the challenge and being inclusive. If you want to kill an idea, I believe, you try to run it like a clique. If you want it to succeed in this community, you try to get old, young, black, white, Hispanic, everybody involved and release their creativity and give them a chance to succeed.
Okay, we're going to take another question from the audience.
My name is Molly Trueblood. I was wondering if you could all maybe pick one underutilized asset of Indianapolis that we could maybe expand upon to make a better quality of life for the residents.
I think young people is the greatest underutilized resource because we tend to see them as the problem, not as an asset. So businesses complain about young people, schools don't know what to do with young people. So it's like we don't know, and truly they are the future. I mean, we don't know how to build on them right now. It's going to be very difficult to see the future of the city. So I really think that young people is a very underutilized resource.
Okay.
And there's some interesting thinking going on about kind of waterways as an underutilized asset in Indianapolis at the moment, and particularly where the intersection of waterways and our urban neighborhoods occurs. So in the interest of brevity, I'd suggest that may be one of the great sub-optimized assets.
The city market has a west wing that's sitting empty right now, except for on Saturday mornings when there's a winter farmers market there. And that, I think, is an asset that we're having some great conversations and actually working on a project to make that a hub for neighborhood conversations and these social entrepreneurs we've been discussing to come together and work on ideas to improve neighborhoods, and that's a great asset.
You know, my initial thought when you asked the question was just the Latino community, that we just haven't found a better way. And then my second thought was youth.
I'm going to say GM stamping plant. It's 115 acres. It's on the White River. That's soon going to be clean because of our massive sewer upgrade in this community. Has huge opportunities to benefit the West Indianapolis neighborhood. And it's close to so many different drivers like White River State Park and the zoo and the universities. That's just going to be a really exciting project, which a lot of us are looking forward to working on.
Hi, I'm Jesse Carbonda with the Hoosier Environmental Council. One of the things that I find most inspirational about the Legacy project is the degree to which sustainability has been embedded into the concept. And in conversations with Mark and Bill and Mike, there's certainly a broader embrace of sustainability more generally. I wonder specifically what you might see as opportunities at the city, county, council level or at the mayoral office level to advance policy that will accelerate the pace of sustainability in our city.
Stormwater runoff is a huge opportunity because it was true on some of the projects on the East 10th Street and also on Georgia Street. That's a perfect example where we've invested a massive amount of money in our stormwater systems and our sewer systems, and making the case that you can save money at that street level. It's definitely opened my eyes. But I think the other thing it does is it can make these green solutions accessible to people in the neighborhood, where a lot of people look at these green infrastructure solutions. They think they're complicated. They think the kind of things that you only see in museums or universities. I think there's a huge opportunity around stormwater for these green infrastructure solutions at the neighborhood level.
The very nature of neighborhood revitalization and of a walkable neighborhood is a green activity. So, I mean, any kind of policies that push reinvestment towards older neighborhoods is by nature a sustainable activity compared to new development.
I think part of that conversation is repurposing, right? I mean, we treat waste in a very unfortunate way. We just treat it like waste. And in most cases, we can find a way to repurpose that stuff. And even when it comes to stormwater, we can use it for growing. So we need to think more, and going on the same line of sustainability, is that nothing here is wasteful, right? That's just our old mindset. Now we have to move forward and say that this city of the 21st, 22nd, 23rd century is how do we repurpose and how we put the stuff in the front end. So we think about what we do. We're not going to use substandard stuff anymore, right? It's how does it help grow?
I'm not sure that I have a great answer for Jesse on the policy side, but my experience in the Near East Side sort of validates Bill's comment about neighborhood redevelopment by definition is in part about sustainability. It never ceased to amaze me how we didn't have to educate anybody. I was being educated on the Near East Side about sustainability. Mm-hmm. We never talked about rehabbing a building where the neighborhood wasn't absolutely emphatic about is it going to be gold or platinum. You know, the LEED certification was a given. The same was true for the alleys. The same was true for really everything there. So this is another area where I think people, and particularly kind of this creative group to a great extent in these neighborhoods, are ahead of the policymakers, and the time will come, just as I think it will in transit.
As we end our discussion, we are reminded of what We Care neighborhood homeowner Dixie McRoy told us about our ultimate goal. She said, "We're not looking for utopia, but a neighborhood that can be comfortable and can be friendly and it can be safe and beautiful. That is our desire." Yet, in that simple expression, there are a lot of challenges. To help reaffirm our commitment to that goal, we thought we'd have a little fun. We're joined by members of the international community from the Lafayette Square area to salute the progress we've made and to focus on the work ahead. We begin with Willie De La Rosa from Manila, the Philippines.
Para sa karangalan ng bayan ng Indianapolis, bilang kasambahayan ng iba't ibang lahi at kultura.
In recognition of the fact that Indianapolis is a diverse and culturally rich community. Juan Silva from Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico.
Gracias. Y en honor a nuestros ciudadanos que se esfuerzan diario a trabajar juntos, a aprender juntos y a crecer juntos. Gracias.
And in honor of our citizens who strive every day to work together, learn together, and grow together. Mercy Sampson from West Africa.
Ya afernyen ke uformi. Ima mubok nyen. Ye fet iba ye freu.
We ask that all in this room take the hand of their neighbor sitting beside them. Raju Chintala from India.
भाईचारे के साथ इंडियानापोलिस को समाज का श्रेष्ठ रूप देने हेतु
and raise them together in an act of solidarity to make Indianapolis the best it can be for all of its neighborhoods.
WFYI's Super Bowl Legacy series is available in a 4-show collector's edition. Go to WFYI.org/store to purchase your copy.
This broadcast is brought to you by Chase, investing in schools, homes, and communities all over Indianapolis with a focus on the Near East Side. This is what Chase is doing. This is the way forward.
INHP, helping working families become and remain homeowners by providing preparation and support for success today and tomorrow. Homeownership has the potential to preserve neighborhoods and strengthen communities into the future. Dream, prepare, succeed.
Citizens Energy Group, a proud supporter of the Super Bowl Legacy Project and dedicated to raising the quality of life in the Indianapolis community. Information at citizensenergygroup.com.